Planet of Lana is Wishfully Studios' debut game, and published by Thunderful Publishing. Hey, I recognise that logo. Oh no. On the bright side, Planet of Lana is available right now on Game Pass. We're taking a look on Xbox Series S. This review will be story spoiler free, but we will be showing gameplay from the whole game. We cover a new game every single week, so if you like what we do here, consider subscribing, and if there's a Game Pass game you'd like us to take a look at, comment below and let us know. And with that, we're going on an off-world odyssey and letting you know if Planet of Lana is worth your time. I've got to be completely honest. My favourite part of this game was an extended QuickTime event. I just didn't find this gameplay experience very compelling. Planet of Lana is a platform puzzler. Lana and space creature companion Mui have to navigate environments together by shifting platforms, avoiding robots and working together. Unfortunately, a myriad of problems tarnish the gameplay experience. First and foremost, the puzzles don't really progress. You get a few new abilities as the game goes on, but it never really amounts to more than just moving platforms around. There are a few puzzles that do branch away from this format, and they're easily the best puzzles in the game, but even they feel average at best. I never felt challenged, just inconvenienced, and this is compounded by the pace of the game. Planet of Lana is not a very long game, but boy, do you feel every minute. There is absolutely a place for chilled, slow games. Hell, I adored Abzu and Journey for their slower pace. But Planet of Lana fails on this front for a couple of reasons. The first is the use of time-based puzzles, with oddly unforgiving timings. The window for sneaking past robots and jumping across moving platforms is really slim, and when Lana climbs up ledges at glacial speed, things can get pretty frustrating. There was one awful puzzle where you have to move a platform, let gravity bring it down to you whilst you platform to the platform, and then jump across, and if you failed, the reset required another small platforming section, dragging the platform all the way back up, and then doing everything all over again. Interacting with the world also feels very inconsistent in that some prompts require one button press, and some require two, like these planks. Is there really a reason that I need to pull each one off separately? Or these control panels? There was not one instance where I did not want to immediately press the button underneath, yet I had to tear the cover off and then interact with the object a second time, every time. The worst offender is the space creature. The controls for this guy are actually pretty intuitive. Press B to tell him to stop, hold B to call him back to you. Pointer controls tell him where to go. The issue I had was calling him back to me. There are a lot of things in the game that you need Mui to stand on, so you call him over to you, and sometimes he'll stop where you're standing, or sometimes he'll stop 5 feet away for some reason. In the latter case, just call him again and he'll come to you, but I don't see why he can't just come to where I'm standing every single time. My final pacing problem is the game's use of cutscenes. Some fade out to black, some are seamless, but there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. They also come constantly at the start of the game. You get a little bit of gameplay, then a cutscene that doesn't really show you anything, and then back to a little bit of gameplay, back to cutscene. It's paced really awkwardly and just left me a bit frustrated. Having all of the cutscenes be seamless would have fixed this issue entirely because there'd be no sudden break in game flow. You're still getting the cutscene, but the transition between gameplay to cutscene is a lot less abrasive. We are going to touch on these pacing issues again later in the commitment section. The control scheme is very intuitive. I think the devs have done a great job at assigning a lot of abilities to just a few buttons. However, Lana herself feels very sluggish, and this works against the puzzle and stealth sections in the game. Like I said, in a different kind of game, this wouldn't be an issue, but if you're going to ask the player to be snappy and responsive with inputs, the game needs to be snappy and responsive in movement. I feel that this issue could have been resolved by simply giving the player a bit more of a window to execute puzzle solutions. Whilst we're on the topic of controls, these drones just suck to control. There's not really a good segue for that, but it needs to be mentioned. Overall, Planet of Lana felt extremely style over substance. We'll get onto that style in a moment. I was honestly just bored. The puzzles are uninspired and the game just felt sluggish. I kept waiting for the game to take that extra leap, and when it finally did, we were in the last half an hour and it was a long-form QuickTime event. I'm genuinely really torn between a 1 or a 2 here. The gameplay experience present is not outright terrible, but it is extremely subpar, and writing it down like that makes it feel more like a 2 out of 5. Now that's style. You guys have knocked it out of the park. Good grief. Planet of Lana is one of the most beautiful games I've played all year. This is a very specific reference, but it looked like what I imagined Ichigo looked like from the book Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It was a fun experience. I could gush about the art direction here all day. I'm kind of sad that we always do gameplay first, because if any of the devs end up watching this, they're going to have to hear me be mean about their game before doing a complete 180. The visual style here is the highlight. Everything has this gorgeous painted style, and they really push the boat out with an insane array of environments. Village, highlands, swamp, desert, and even more. There's not a frame in this game that looks visually unappealing. There's also this great depth effect applied to environments. This is most notably shown off in the opening, where buildings will stretch from the background to the foreground at odd angles. I'd love to see how this was achieved because it looks phenomenal. The design of the world is also stellar. Each environment feels wonderfully unique in look, and the look of the alien machines is fantastic. They feel weighty, yet quick, and very scary. Every time these giant spider legs came onto screen, I was having a good time. They were scary in all the right ways. Animation keeps the theme. Lana is animated wonderfully, if a little slow for gameplay. Mui is adorable in the way he runs around, and the environments rustle and move realistically. It really does feel like a moving painting. Again, I'd also like to give special mention to the alien machines. They're all animated fantastically, with great additional effects to really make them feel imposing. Both the sound design and OST are great. Environments and sequences are always elevated with a great soundscape. Planet of Lana feels like a real place that I want to just hang out in. UI is mostly just button prompts, but these are all stylized and clear, and can be scaled in the settings. It's not all totally perfect. I do have one art direction niggle, and it's to do with gameplay. Some of the elements of puzzles blend into the environment a little too well. It's definitely not enough to knock a point off because it doesn't happen a lot, but it did make a few puzzles feel unsolvable after a few attempts because I simply couldn't see things like this hole. Overall though, the art direction here is stellar. For a debut game, this is masterful, and it easily gets the full 5 out of 5. If there's any reason to play this game, this is it. I'm going to give you a little peek behind the curtain here into how I process stories. If you begin your story with someone getting kidnapped or killed, you have to do a lot of extra work to characterize them in my eyes. In a story sense, I do not care about this person, so you have to make me care about them after the fact. It's a bit blunt, but it's just how I am with stories. Planet of Lana doesn't do any of the work, and unfortunately doesn't have a good story to fill in the gap. I can tell you that Lana's friend is called Elo, and that's it. We get absolutely nothing else, and whilst the argument could be made that I can imagine my own friend has been taken, that doesn't really work for me. I didn't care about the rescue mission. Aside from that, I loved the opening. It felt very reminiscent of The War of the Worlds, and I was excited to see where the story was going to go, but it never really goes anywhere new. Everything felt painfully predictable, and it just didn't click with me. The hook didn't intrigue me, and learning about the aliens falls into the trap of being a little too vague to be interesting. I think the story at a baseline is enough to move the gameplay along and give it some context, but that's where it ends. It isn't terrible by any means, but it's absolutely not treading any new ground, nor capitalizing on that great opening. We're giving the narrative of Planet of Lana a 2 out of 5. Planet of Lana is a complete yet compact content package and relatively bug-free. The only technical issue we experienced was frame stutter. This happened a lot, but was never detrimental to gameplay. It did, however, pull me out of the experience. Content-wise, you're getting a full single-player story filled with puzzles and some additional secrets. You do get free save slots. Settings-wise, you can view controls, but not change them. This is fine, however, as the controls are pretty comfortable and simple. Point sensitivity can be adjusted using a slider. Controller vibration can be toggled and has an intensity slider. There are sliders for master, sound effects, music and voiceover volume, there are major language options. QuickTime events can be toggled and there is a UI scale slider. Here's what the smallest UI size looks like, here's what the default UI size looks like, and here's what the maximum UI size looks like. I'd recommend bumping it up a bit as some button prompts are pretty small on the default setting. The only setting missing here is a brightness slider. This game gets pretty dark sometimes, and an option to make the darker areas a little brighter would have been nice. Do know I'm not talking about the pitch black areas in the game, just the areas where all of the dark shades blend into each other a little too much. Overall, Planet of Lana feels like a complete game with some good tweaks, but there is a lack of polish all over with the frame stutters, and that missing brightness slider really hurts some sections of the game. Still, the score is high at a 4 out of 5. It took me just under 4 hours to complete Planet of Lana. I think this is a fine length. The game doesn't change much during that length, but it doesn't overstay its welcome either. The game is also broken up into chapters, which can be replayed at your leisure in the menu. Autosave is also nice and frequent, and overall it's very easy to fit Planet of Lana into your free time. Play the whole thing in one go or break it up into chapters. It really is nice and flexible. Hard drive footprint is also nice and respectful at 3.9 gigabytes. The commitment issue with Planet of Lana are all of those pacing issues that I mentioned all the way back in the gameplay section. These problems are not bad on their own, but combined and repeated, it felt like the game was wasting my time for no real reason at points. This is what knocks a point off, and lands Planet of Lana a 4 out of 5 on our commitment scale. The numbers don't lie. We consider anything over 15 worth your time, and Planet of Lana is worth your time, but in my opinion, for the art direction alone, I really don't feel that the gameplay or narrative are very good. But if you're after a simple, chill experience, I could see why you'd like this game. It just wasn't for me. The high technical scores are doing a lot of heavy lifting, but hey, we review the whole package. It's a short, pretty, mostly well put together game on a technical level. Unfortunately for me though, the gameplay and narrative do let it down massively. However, at the end of the day, I'm not going to lie to you. There is an experience worth having with this game. In my opinion, it's just a very pretty painting.